We often admire ancient civilizations for their magnificent achievements: the pyramids of Egypt, the philosophy of Greece, the engineering of Rome. When we picture these societies, we imagine a world of grand monuments and intellectual breakthroughs. This idealized view was a simple narrative: great leaders building empires that laid the foundations for our modern world. But from the perspective of social history, the real story came from a much darker reality that is rarely discussed. We tend to forget that behind the architectural wonders and cultural milestones, these societies were built on foundations of brutality and fear. Rulers enforced their will not through justice, but through terror. Harsh laws were commonplace, and punishments were designed to be as cruel and public as possible to deter dissent. For example, in ancient Rome, crucifixion was a common penalty reserved for slaves and non-citizens. A slow and agonizing death meant to serve as a stark warning. In Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi, while a landmark in legal history, prescribed brutal an eye for an eye punishments that institutionalized violence. This observation sets the scene for a more complete understanding of ancient life and, eventually, a greater appreciation for the progress we've made in human rights. This darker side extended far beyond the legal system. Political intrigue was a constant, with power struggles often ending in assassination and betrayal. Corruption was rampant, as elites enriched themselves at the expense of the general populace. Society was sharply divided into classes, with a vast gap between the privileged few and the struggling masses. The daily life of an ordinary person, or, even worse, a slave, was one of hardship and peril. They labored in dangerous conditions, building the very monuments we admire today, often with little to no rights or hope for a better future. The grand temples and palaces were frequently built by the hands of those who were seen as disposable, their lives sacrificed for the glory of the state. Furthermore, the wars and conquests that defined many of these empires brought unimaginable suffering. The expansion of Rome, the conquests of Alexander the Great, and the rise and fall of countless other powers were accompanied by widespread destruction, massacres, and the enslavement of entire populations. Cities were razed, cultures were erased, and countless lives were lost in the relentless pursuit of power and territory. Even religious practices, which we might associate with spiritual comfort, could take on terrifying forms. Rituals in some civilizations involved human sacrifice, where individuals were offered to the gods in brutal ceremonies to ensure good harvests or victory in battle. This was a world where fear, not faith, often dictated one's relationship with the divine. Over time, many of these harsh truths have been sanitized, hidden, or simply lost to history. The victors wrote the narratives, often omitting the grim details that might tarnish their legacy. Yet, uncovering this darker side is essential. It doesn't diminish the genuine achievements of ancient civilizations, but it provides a more complete and honest picture of our past. By acknowledging the brutality, inequality, and suffering that were once commonplace, we gain crucial insights into human nature and the long, difficult journey toward a more just and ethical world. It reminds us that the principles of justice, equality, and human rights we value today were not inevitable. They were hard-won through centuries of struggle. By studying this complex legacy, we can better understand the progress we have made and the work that still remains.